Welcome to our channel. We are sincerely trying to choose interesting stories, so we would really like to see your subscription. I am 28 years old, and I was once married to my childhood friend, who is now 29 years old. We have known each other since an early age, as we were neighbors and often walked in the neighborhood, but we started dating only when I entered my third year of college. After graduating from college, he bought a house and I moved in with him. We got married when I turned 22, and now we are the parents of two boys aged 6 and 3. Although we have, in fact, lived in the same house since college, we recently purchased a better house and are preparing to move into it. My husband is my only romantic partner, and our intimate life has always remained stable. In the past, we had sex at least twice a day, a frequency that seemed pretty high considering the length of our relationship. My husband had a college friend whom we will call Oliver. Although they were close during college and at one point even shared a living space, they drifted apart after graduation. Despite the difference in views, Oliver was always friendly when we were around him. Until one day, during the family's move to the new house we bought, Oliver's presence began to affect me in a way I hadn't experienced before. When we were tidying up our garage during a special weekend, I came across a stash of 3 condoms among my husband's belongings. Initially, I suspected infidelity, considering that they were lying next to his graduation album. However, doubts arose due to their size, and the chronology seemed inappropriate. Despite the fact that I stopped using protective equipment in my second year, condoms were close to his textbooks for the 4th year. After talking to my husband, he explained that they belonged to Oliver, who had an unusually large instrument and they were kept as a friendly joke. Although this explanation made me uncomfortable, it made sense, given my husband's periodic cluelessness and the harmless teasing of friends. After this incident, I temporarily forgot about it. However, when my husband invited Oliver to join us at the sports bar one evening, I couldn't help but think about what my husband had said about Oliver's size. This marked the beginning of feelings unfamiliar to me, which I hadn't thought about before. Despite the fact that I was pregnant with our second child at the time, I tried to explain these feelings for hormonal reasons. I started asking my husband more about Oliver, even though I had no direct reason to contact him. Instagram, Facebook, and I added Oliver, but his rare posts upset me a little. In intimate moments with my husband, it bothered me that thinking about Oliver seemed to increase my arousal. After struggling with these thoughts for several months, I realized the unhealthy nature of my feelings. I made the difficult decision to remove Oliver from my friends on social media, although I was too eager to contact him directly. Afterwards, at the sex determination party for our second child, where Oliver was present, I couldn't deny that the desire for him remained. Fearing these feelings and the possibility of falling in love with him, I was afraid to explore the deep desires that I had for Oliver. After the birth of my second child, circumstances allowed me to spend more time with Oliver. Having decided to become a stay-at-home mom, one day I was at a doctor's appointment, and I needed someone to pick up my sons from kindergarten. Oliver, who had a more flexible schedule, agreed to help. This led to friendly correspondence that developed over time. By encouraging the switch to Snapchat, our conversations became more friendly, and I often took the initiative. One Saturday, when my husband was at work, I invited Oliver to go shopping with me. Having initially refused due to the lack of a babysitter, I suggested that he take his children with him. At the store, my main goal was to spend time with Oliver, enjoying his company and feeling carefree, like a schoolgirl when she is next to him. It was difficult for me to control my emotions around him, although I never had any intention of cheating on my husband. I found that I was ready to do his bidding. While he was trying to remain humble, I often came up with excuses to start physical contact by touching his back or arms and prolonging these moments, especially when our children were busy. Surprisingly, he did not reject my advances and did not take any steps towards me, which prompted me to further escalate the situation. After completing our purchases, he helped me with the purchased items, while our children were busy in the back seat of our cars. I was a little disappointed, as he did not do the expected actions. However, he surprised me by offering to come and help with the things I bought. It was obvious that I didn't really need help. I was thrilled when he made this offer. Even though I tried not to accept him too quickly, I eventually agreed, realizing that everything he had to do had to be fast, given that my husband was supposed to be home in about 5 hours. When we got to my house, we sat our tired children in the playroom with software, video games before you start unpacking and putting away the things you bought. When we got to the bedroom, I found myself explaining that these were old clothes that I wanted to try on to see if they still fit. I mentioned that if they don't, I plan to get rid of them only. In response, he assured me that I would definitely still fit into these clothes, adding that I looked just as attractive as when we first met, many years ago. His words aroused in me an irresistible desire unlike anything I had ever experienced before. At that moment, I couldn't resist kissing him. It is important to note that I have never been with anyone other than my husband. The feeling of Oliver's hands on my body during that passionate kiss was unlike anything I had ever experienced, making me incredibly aroused when he began to undress me. Knowing that we were about to engage in a passionate fight, I had no emotional attachment to him, and our physical encounters were not related to making love. They were driven solely by a primal desire for physical connection. Watching him put on the protection and participate in the act made everything I dreamed of come true, and even more. The passion was incredibly strong, unlike any previous experience, which was filled with love, confidence, and intimacy. It was different, the desire for a passionate physical connection with someone who had a strong desire, and it was amazing. The feeling of his strong back under my hands, his lips on my neck, and the repeated achievement of orgasm during the meeting was beyond words. We kept the same pose the whole time, and after he climaxed, we both agreed to keep it a secret, knowing that it could jeopardize our marriages. After he left with his children, I felt something release inside me. When my husband returned home, I couldn't help but feel guilty, despite the fact that since then, my husband and I have had intimate moments, and I sincerely enjoyed them. I still felt attracted to Oliver. We continued to text and meet at least once a week as a casual snack during a diet, a necessary experience to feel like a desirable woman. The secret affair with Oliver filled me with guilt, but at the same time brought a forbidden feeling of excitement. Our affair lasted 5 months, and during that time we attended a mutual friend's birthday party. However, I noticed that Oliver distanced himself from me when I sent him a message, and it took him longer to respond. When I came face to face with him, he mentioned his wife's suspicions and admitted that he felt guilty considering Oliver a friend. These revelations made me reconsider our relationship, wondering if he was enjoying it more. Despite the temptation to leave things as they are, I couldn't resist the need to end it. I convinced him to meet at the diner to end our affair. During the meeting, I found out that Oliver's wife had quarreled with him after a mutual friend's birthday party, suspecting our involvement. Despite my regrets, I convinced him to meet one last time at the hotel, knowing that this would be our last meeting in order to avoid further threat to our marriage. About 5 hours after leaving the hotel, I received an alarming message from Oliver, which simply said, "She knows." I panicked, and I answered by asking who knew. His wife. Desperate for answers, I called Oliver. He said that his wife was in tears and heartbroken, having concrete evidence of our activities, including entering and exiting the diner and the hotel. My heart sank when I thought about the consequences for my own marriage if my husband found out about this revelation. When I asked if Oliver's wife had shared the evidence with my husband, he explained that he was still going through the turmoil in his marriage, and he had no answer. In a panic, I raised my voice, urging him to ask his wife about it immediately. Unfortunately, my anxiety got the better of me, and the conversation continued until he hung up. Stunned and panicked, I tried to call Oliver back, but he didn't answer. In desperation, I sent him a message apologizing for raising my voice. When I returned home, I found my husband in tears with all the evidence Oliver had mentioned. It was the first time I witnessed the devastating effect of my actions on the person I considered my soulmate. We cried together, and I begged him for forgiveness, but he was inconsolable. My husband questioned the duration of the affair, and I decided to confess everything. Begging his forgiveness, I promised to see a psychologist and do everything possible to regain his trust. That day marked the saddest moment of my life, because I realized that I had betrayed not only his trust, but also someone who he considered a friend. We were both afraid of what people would say if they found out, and the shame it would bring to our family. Reflecting on my rash actions throughout the novel, I realized its absolute meaninglessness. After 2 days of trying to mend our relationship, I took the initiative to find a marriage counselor and started visiting an individual counselor. I sought to demonstrate a sincere commitment to making our marriage work. During this time, we made the difficult decision to completely cut Oliver out of our lives. My husband contacted Oliver expressing his anger and disappointment. Surprisingly, Oliver took full responsibility and offered sincere apologies, even if it wasn't entirely his fault. I focused on saving my marriage, believing that Oliver's relationship might already be irreparable. After 2 weeks of effort, my husband decided on a trial separation for 3 months. This period will be used to evaluate our relationship and determine whether we should continue to be together or break up. The day Oliver's wife discovered his infidelity and decided to leave him, our respective partners left us. In desperation, we secretly reached out to each other, realizing that we had nothing to lose. When we were planning to meet again, we didn't know that Oliver's wife was tracking his phone and found out about our plans. She shared this information with my husband, prompting him to divorce immediately. Unexpectedly, Oliver's wife decided to return to him and began sending threatening voice messages, demanding that I stay away from Oliver. It seemed to me that I had lost everything: the love of my life and Oliver. I tried to explain to my husband that I had turned to Oliver because he had left us, and I was not sure what to do. However, my husband continued to insist on a divorce regardless of my reasons. Despite my attempts to convince him to think about the welfare of our children, he remained firm in his decision. To make matters worse, he took the liberty of informing my family of my infidelity, which I felt was unnecessary and should have remained a private matter. Reflecting on my actions, I admitted my misconduct and deeply regret that I started an affair. Despite my remorse, I still regret that my husband did not handle the situation differently. I miss the days when our relationship was simpler and more harmonious.
My spouse was unfaithful to me with a colleague named Chad from her workplace. The revelation occurred when she unintentionally left her Facebook Messenger open on the laptop, displaying messages from Chad. Instead of reacting impulsively, I chose to remain composed and contemplate this situation. I didn't want to regret my actions later. Recalling my brother's experience in a similar scenario, he wished he had been more strategic and taken significant measures. To avoid feeling the same way, I decided to channel my anger in a manner that would deeply affect both my wife and Chad. I sought revenge that would be profoundly devastating. After several days of planning, I concluded that the most effective strategy would be to invite Chad's wife, Sarah, on an unexpected double date. I contacted Sarah on Facebook and proposed a phone conversation, assuming she would want to know about her husband's infidelity and possibly help end the affair. Surprisingly, she agreed to meet with us. Sarah remained remarkably composed and calm about the situation. Instead of panicking or getting upset, she expressed a desire for revenge as well. Together, we devised a cunning plan to make our unfaithful partners witness us apparently being unfaithful, delivering a powerful blow. Initially, I hesitated, but the more I considered it, the more I loved the idea. We communicated frequently over a few days, searching for signs and potential times when they would rendezvous. Eventually, we discovered that Jane and Chad would be meeting at an upscale bar on Friday night on the other end of the city. When Friday arrived, Jane mentioned going out to eat with a friend and then shopping, while Chad informed Sarah about going axe throwing with friends. But we knew their real plans. Sarah and I decided to go on our date and accidentally bump into them there, just to witness their reactions. We even agreed to dress up and look impressive. Note, Sarah did look amazing, but that didn't hurt the plan. As my wife left, I acted completely normal until she was officially in her car and driving away. I then went into quick action, preparing for my night out with Sarah. I picked her up, and we excitedly discussed how the plan would unfold. Despite feeling waves of excitement, nervousness, sadness, and frustration, adrenaline kept us focused on our path to revenge. Upon arriving at the bar, we spotted Jane and Chad in a cozy corner, laughing, smiling, and flirting. My heart raced as Sarah and I walked over to a table just far enough away to not be immediately noticed, but still visible from their location. We held hands and pretended everything was normal, ordering drinks and appetizers, peeking over until they finally noticed us. The moment they saw us was priceless. Their eyes widened, and they looked as though they had seen a ghost. I could practically see the cogs turning in their heads as they tried to process what was happening. Sarah quickly pointed out that they saw us and suggested I should kiss her. Initially unimaginable, I gave in a moment later, sharing a long, passionate kiss fueled by our mutual anger. I rubbed my eyes and peeked through my hands, witnessing them in a mix of emotions: furious, exposed, confused. Finally, after about 15 minutes of our laughter and flirting, Chad mustered up the courage to confront the situation. Summoning the courage to approach us, Chad stammered about the coincidence of finding us both there and demanded an explanation. I remained composed, downplaying the situation, greeting Chad as if we were old friends. I casually mentioned that Sarah and I decided to have a drink for the fun of it and reminded Chad that Sarah was his wife. Chad's face turned red, and he started to stutter more. Jane, witnessing the interaction, appeared horrified and on the verge of tears. Before Chad could respond, Sarah stepped in, dismissing any wrongdoing, stating that we were just two people enjoying ourselves, much like Chad and Jane. The looks on their faces were priceless. They were caught red-handed. I would like to kindly remind you to subscribe to my channel. Chad, clearly at a loss for words, mumbled an excuse about needing to use the restroom and quickly vanished. Jane, unable to bear it any longer, stood up, tears streaming down her face, and stormed out of the bar. It was evident that she never expected to be on the receiving end of her own deceit. With our mission accomplished, Sarah and I shared a high five and a knowing glance. The satisfaction of successfully turning the tables on our cheating spouses was indescribable. We stayed at the bar a while longer, finishing our drinks and getting to know each other better. Despite the circumstances that brought us together, we realized we had much in common and enjoyed each other's company. As the night progressed, Sarah and I exchanged stories about our marriages, attempts to make things work, and the disappointment we faced from our partners. It was therapeutic to share my pain with someone who understood it deeply. When it was time to leave, I took her home and we promised to stay in touch. We anticipated difficult conversations and decisions ahead, but at least we had each other for support. Over the next few weeks, both our marriages crumbled. Jane and Chad expressed extreme remorse, but it was too little too late. Sarah and I supported each other through the divorce process and coped with the emotional fallout. Ultimately, our revenge not only taught our cheating spouses a lesson, but also brought together two people dealing with immense heartache, giving us the strength to move on from the past. I'm not suggesting that Sarah and I are a couple or anything. It's too early for that. However, we've become really good friends, and who knows what the future holds. Regardless, the support we've provided each other during this time has been significant. So, there you have it. My story of nuclear revenge on my cheating wife and her affair partner, executed successfully.